Week 2 quiz, formal writing lecture notes. When you write formal English, this means that we don't write slang. When we write formal writing, we are writing for our teacher and our boss. Types of formal writing include research papers in college, some newspapers, official documents or records and business reports at work. Avoid using contractions in formal English. Contractions make our writing sound too informal. Examples of contractions include can't or won't. It is better to stick to cannot or will not because when you write out your contractions, it sounds more professional. Also, in formal writing, we use third-person case, he, she, they, for a more objective tone. We want to avoid writing our personal opinions, and we want to avoid first-person case, I, my, us, mine, we, and we avoid second-person case, you and your. We want to focus on the idea of what we are writing about and not about ourselves. The only exception is if you're writing a narrative essay. If we use an outside source, we have to cite the source. We cannot simply just make up a statistic and stick it in our paper. That's the problem with Wikipedia. It lacks credibility because it lacks citations. When you look at Wikipedia, you ask yourself, where did this information come from? So when you use an outside source, and when you use numbers in particular, you need to cite the author, date, and page number so that the reader knows where you got your information from and to avoid plagiarism and to give credit to the researcher. We use passive voice in formal writing to add objectivity to our writing. We form passive voice by having a be verb plus a past participle. An example of passive voice is the tree was run into by a car. Writing in passive voice makes the writer more believable and credible. Passive voice is used mainly in science papers. When we cite a source, you want to include the author, date, page number. According to Dr. Smith, the pandemic is over. So you would write according to then the name of the person who said it or the name of your website. Then you write the date and the page number. When we use a statistic, also include the in-text citation. So 67% of Americans die from gun violence. Then you have to put in the author, the date, the page number. Or you can say, according to Dr. Smith, 67% of Americans die from gun violence. So however way you say it, you just got to have author, date, page number. So that's when we use a direct quote, when we quote something word per word. We use APA to give credit to the researcher and to avoid plagiarism, like I just said earlier. If we simply state statistics without citing the source, then we're committing plagiarism and stealing information from the researcher who actually did the research. So always make sure you cite your sources if you use any kind of numerical information or uncommon knowledge. Types of formal writing include research papers in college, some newspapers and magazines, official documents, records, as well as business reports. In formal writing, we avoid contractions to avoid sounding too conversational. Always write out your contractions to sound more professional. And in formal writing, we also use third-person case for a more professional tone. We take out first-person case, I, my, us, we, our, and we take out second-person case, you and your, and replace first and second-person case with third-person case. Third-person case is also known as the reporter case. If we use a statistic, we always cite the source. When you write a science paper, you always use a passive voice. And when you write an APA in-text citation, it is always important to tell the reader the source of your information. For example, many Americans are killed by guns every day. Okay, that's too vague. This is much better. Data from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention show that on an average day, 96 Americans are killed with guns. And so you want to avoid the first one, many Americans are killed by guns, because that's too vague. And instead, you want the second one because it tells you where the information came from. It came from the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention. always use third-person case when you cite a source. So here's incorrect. Our death rate is 25 times of other countries. Also, be specific about what you cite. Another one that's not right. More people kill more people with guns in the US than in other countries put together. Well, exactly how many people were killed? It is not clear from this statement. Avoid interjecting your personal opinion by when you put in leading negative adjectives like the horrible US gun death is shockingly 25 times more than the average of other super wealthy countries. Okay, so you want to leave out all those, leading, horrible, and super, and wealthy. So when you write out your facts, just state the facts in an objective tone. So all of the above are all examples of the wrong way to cite something. The correct way to cite something is the U.S. gun death rate is 25 times more than the average of other high-income countries. This is the correct answer because it is in third-person case, and I don't say our death rate, and I don't say shockingly horrible or anything like that, and then I give an exact number of how 25 times, not just more people kill more people, how many more people. So you want the correct answer is you want it objective and specific, and you want it to be objective. I think that's what I said. Yeah. So the U.S. gun death rate is 25 times more than the average of other high-income countries. This is the correct answer because it is in third-person case. It states exactly how many people died, and it doesn't use, inflated adjectives like horrible and shocking to manipulate reader opinion. Always keep your facts objective. Just state the facts. Here's another one. Which one is the correct one? I read the amazing fact that 62% of deaths from guns in the U.S. are depressing suicides. How can this be fixed so that it is more objective? Well, don't use emotional language. Omit adjectives like amazing, depressing. So do not use emotional adjectives to manipulate the viewer's opinion. Just state the fact objectively. Also, you need to add the source of the information. Where did you get that 62%, which was so amazing? You have to write according to the CDC. So when you cite a source, always cite the website name or the author name and the date. Use third-person case and avoid saying amazing and depressing. Avoid those kind of manipulative adjectives that you hear on the news all the time. And don't write in first-person case. Don't say, I read that, the amazing fact. We don't care what you read. We don't care. All we care about is the fact. And so therefore you want to omit first-person case. I read. Always stick to third-person case. And so here the correct way of saying it is according to the CDC, 62% of deaths from guns in the U.S. are suicides. You don't say depressing suicides, amazing fact, I read, and so on and so forth. Or you can say, or CDC 2022 states that 62% of deaths from guns in the U.S. are suicides. Or 62% of deaths from guns in the U.S. are suicides. These are all correct ways to cite an in-text citation inside your paper using APA. So here's another example. How do I correctly cite this one? I can't believe that guns have killed more people in the U.S. than all the wars put together. Okay, who the heck cares about what you believe or don't believe? Number one. And then you want to get rid of first-person case. So the correct answer would be, since 1968, more Americans have been killed by guns than in all of the country's wars, according to the Guardian newspaper. This is the correct way to cite the source because you have to get rid of I can't believe, because that is first-person case. It's too personal. And you always want to stick to the facts and always third-person case. And you always have to cite the date, the author, and your source. So here is another way to write a fact in your paper. the U.S. should not allow individuals to own guns. This is correct because it uses third-person case, and he writes out his contractions. Now, whether or not you agree with this statement, that's another argument for your persuasive essay paper. But I'm just saying that if you want to just write out the fact, that is the correct way of writing it. The incorrect way of writing this is, I believe the U.S. should not allow individuals to own guns. Why is that wrong? Because it uses I believe in first-person case. The U.S. shouldn't allow many people to own guns that are dangerous to others. This one is wrong because it has contractions like shouldn't, and it has leading adjectives like dangerous. All right, so as soon as you have leading adjectives and you have contractions that aren't written out, then you don't believe it. I believe the U.S. shouldn't allow individuals to own dangerous guns. Once again, it's wrong because it has first-person case, and it's got first-person case. They didn't write out their contractions, and they're using adjectives. So the correct answer actually was the one above here, right there. The U.S. should not allow individuals to own guns. Now, many news stations would find just stating the facts boring, so they would add in their announcements. They would add in their adjectives to make it get more ratings, or they would say, "I believe," so that to get the viewer to identify with that journalist, But that does not make, just because that journalist believes it to be true, that doesn't make the fact true, any more true. Or it's just his opinion, and he has to prove it. And what's his proof? So the proof is in the pudding, I guess. Anyway, so you got to make sure no first-person case, no leading adjectives, and you got to use and you got to write out your contraction. So here is your week 2 practice quiz. If you can get 100% on your week 2 practice quiz, then you can take the quiz. Here's the first question. Sean, the teacher in the video, gives suggestions for formal writing. When do you use this kind of writing? And so we use this kind of writing in research papers. So when do we do formal writing? So we do formal writing when we write research papers in college. Some newspapers or magazine articles are in formal English. Official documents and records, as well as important business reports at work. And so these are the different ways. So it's research papers, newspapers, official documents and records, and important business records. And I do believe I wrote that many, many times up here, so that means you need to study, okay? Study what's up here, okay? All of this stuff, and then you take your quiz, because the practice quiz is based on what I said. I think I said it a couple of times, and I can't remember where it is. Here it goes. Types of formal writing include research paper in college, some newspapers and magazines, official documents and records, as well as business reports. So that's where we use formal English. We should avoid contractions in formal writing. True or false? Oh, that's an easy one. True, because if we use contractions, we sound too conversational. In formal writing, we usually use first-person case, second-person case, or third-person case. So I've been saying it till I'm blue in the face. It's third-person case. If we use a statistic, then we should give the source of that information. True or false? Obviously true, because if you use a statistic without citing the source, you are committing plagiarism. In formal writing, the passive voice creates a feeling of objectivity. It helps make the writer more believable. Yes, very, very true. When scientists write in the objective voice, which is passive voice, in other words, you would say the science report being done. This experiment is done under the auspices of CDC. That's an example of formal English, and also that is done is also passive voice. In other words, you don't tell who it is that did it. The subject receives the action of it being done to it. So that's basically, so it's true that passive voice, and we use active voice when we write our essays, and we use passive voice when we write science reports. So imagine writing about gun violence in the United States. Which of the following would be best for a formal essay? Data from U.S. Centers for Disease Control show that on an average day, 96 million Americans are killed with guns. Or do we have B? On an average day, 96 Americans are killed with guns. Then you've got to ask yourself, according to who? According to what scientist? This is so, like in TV commercials, they're always giving you facts. 9 in 10 dentists recommend Dentyne. Which dentists? What's the name of those dentists? They fail to tell you what the name of those dentists, they fail to tell you anything. And so B is not correct because it doesn't tell you where it came from. And this one, so many Americans are killed with guns every day. Why do we need so many? That is like a leading adjective, okay? So this is so vague, and it doesn't tell you how many Americans, and it doesn't tell you where you got the information from. Actually, B is a little better than C, so at least B tells you how many Americans. It just doesn't tell you according to who, you know. Then number D, I think people aren't safe. Who cares what you think? Okay, people don't care what you think. People just want to know the facts. So therefore, A is the correct answer. Data from the U.S. Center for Disease Control show that on an average, 96 Americans are killed with guns. There you find out where it came from. You find out that how many Americans, and nobody cares that you believe in it or it's your opinion. Which of the following sentences would be best for a formal essay? The U.S. gun rate is 25 times more than the average of other high-income countries. More guns kill more people in the U.S. and then in other countries around the world. And you ask yourself, what percentage? What are the numbers? Okay, this is so vague, so that can't be the right one. Our country's gun death rate? Who cares about what you think? This is first person case. As soon as you see first person case, it's like gone. That's not right. The horrible US gun rate, shockingly 25 more, whatever. And so he's using all of these leading adjectives to force you to believe something. Oh, TV does that all the time. I mean, just listen to all of the adjectives, and because they're just trying to get you angry and stuff. That way they get more ratings. So basically, you want to go for objectivity. You don't want to go for something that goes for the jugular. So the real answer is the U.S. gun death rate is 25 times more than the average of other high-income countries. Although I would also say according to such and such a website. But out of the four, okay, out of these four, I could still improve this one, but that's beside the point. Out of these four choices, A is the best, okay? A is the best one. I want the information below in my essay. How should I edit it? I read to the amazing fact that 62% of deaths from guns in the U.S. are depressing suicides. And one thing is, who cares what you think? And you don't say, I read. So first thing is you're going to get rid of I read. And nobody cares that you think it's amazing or depressing for that matter. So should we add more emotional adjectives, so that we can manipulate public opinion? No. So the answer would be 8. Don't use emotional language. Omit amazing and depressing. E. Add the source of the information, such as according to the CDC. And then you want to write in the third person. You want to omit I read. So here you want to omit the emotional language, you want to add, where did you get that information from? See, that's the problem with Wikipedia. They have all of this information and you don't know where it came from. I could have just made it up and said, hey, did you know on the other side of the moon, you've got people living inside? Oh, actually Martians. We all descend from Martians because I believe it's true. Therefore it's true. You see where that leads? Anybody can just make up anything if they say, I believe, or I think so. I can just make it up off the top of my head. Trust me, I've got a great imagination. So the answer is don't use emotional language, omit amazing and depressing, add the source of the information, and this would be your APA, and then write in third person case. I want to use the information below in my essay. How should I edit it? I can't believe that guns have killed more people in the US than all the wars together. So first, how would you fix this one? So when did this take place? Okay, so here you want to edit this sentence, and so the answer is C. Since 1968, more Americans have been killed by guns than all of the country's wars, according to the Guardian newspaper. This is correct because it gives you the source according to, and it doesn't have in other words, A is wrong because it doesn't give a source. B is wrong because it doesn't give how many Americans were killed. And D is wrong because it's got a contraction there that's not written out. And so that makes C the best one because it has the date, it tells you the source, and it's in third person case. So that's number 9. Number 10, I want to express my personal opinion in this essay. Which is the best way to do this? Should you say, I believe the U.S. should not allow individuals to own guns? Should you have the U.S. should not allow individuals to own guns? Or should you have I believe the U.S. shouldn't allow individuals to own dangerous guns? Or should you say the U.S. shouldn't allow many people to own guns that are dangerous to others? So I guess right away, I know that these two are wrong because you've got the leading adjective dangerous there. So right away, I knock off C and D. So it's between A and B. Well, I know it's not A because I'm not going to say I believe because we don't want first person case. That leaves only B. So sometimes it's elimination of, the process of elimination, right? So B is the only one because it's in third person case. It doesn't have any leading, dangerous adjectives. It doesn't have, and she wrote out her contractions, should not, and they didn't use first person case. So B is the correct answer. The U.S. should not allow individuals to own guns. And whether or not you agree or disagree with that makes for a good thesis statement for somebody's persuasive essay. So you would write, no. You could either agree or this would actually make a good first part of somebody's thesis statement. And then you just have to add in your reasons. But anyway, that's not. And so this would be a good personal opinion part of your thesis statement. Okay, so that's number 10. And then here are the answers. And so you can actually test yourself and you have to read all of this. That's why you read all of this first. Study all of these notes first, and then you take the quiz. And if you can get 100% on your practice quiz, then you're ready to take the actual quiz. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me.